Hi.
Hey.
Hi, guys. Thanks for doing this.
Hi. Thanks for
Hi. I
having
don't know
us.
yeah, thanks for having us. I'm Leslie, by the way.
And I'm
I was
Yes.
going to wear my L necklace so that could just be very clear that I'm Leslie, but I
Yeah.
couldn't find it.
Oh, it's gone
So
forever.
here we are. Yeah. No, I mean, it's just pandemic. I don't know where everything is. I don't know where my life is. I don't know.
When's the last time you wore jewelry?
Yeah, I know. I never wear jewelry because I'm just at the house. So
Except you have all those necklaces on right now.
I do. But this is fake. I did this for this podcast. I
Well, if it's
usually
a
don't wear jewelry, and I put earrings in and everything.
if it's a necklace, then it's not fake unless it's an illusion.
Well, it's an illusion. This is an illusion of who I am.
Oh, okay. Got it. So we want to mention a couple of things. We'll mention a lot of things, but definitely want to talk about the fact that you have a book that is out in the world soon. We have, well done. The first in the trilogy is The Rule of One. The second is The Rule of Many. And the third is The Rule of All.
Yes.
And I wonder this, did you start off thinking in terms of a trilogy, or did that develop as it went?
It developed much later.
Should I just call on one of you to answer?
Oh my
the question?
gosh, this is going to happen. Yeah.
Maybe.
I'll do that.
We'll
Ashley,
bounce back in every other one.
I'll start with Ashley. Can you tell me your take on whether it started as a trilogy or did that develop?
It actually started as a feature film.
Oh.
So we went to film school and we wrote a screenplay for The Rule of One. And
Not in film school, though.
No, but we intended to do the whole shebang, like shoot an indie film ourselves, write and direct it, and star in it. And we came out to Hollywood and did all the pitches when, after graduating film school, and everybody told us that we needed IP. So that's what made us think, because we always had a lifelong love of books. We've been readers our whole lives. So it was a life goal, but we never intended to do it with this story and to do it at this point in our lives. We always saw ourselves as purely filmmakers instead of authors at that point. And so we took that screenplay and we adapted it into The Rule of One, and we just intended it for be one book. And then once our publisher was submitted to our editor asked us to write give a synopsis for a second book. And then after we wrote the second book, they asked us for a synopsis for a third book.
I feel like that's the best way that can happen, as opposed to them being like, "Oh, thanks, that's enough."
Yeah, exactly. It was, but it was very challenging for us because we always just the end of the story was the end, and that was the first time that we had ever had to just in films. It was just follow the protagonist, the story's done. But we never had extended, and they've challenged us to do it. We had to come up with a synopsis in 4 days, and that was really challenging for us. But then once our minds were open to that, it just flowed out of us, and we realized. And then we did want a third book, but and we could have kept going with a fourth. We learned how to just keep going with the story. But I'm glad that it's only 3, and that we're moving on to explore other stories.
In the spirit of threes, I'm going to ask you each 3 very brief questions. They're either or questions. And since Ashley, you got to go first before Leslie, you're up first on each of these. And then Ashley, you can ring. First question is, favorite Kennedy, John F. or Bobby?
I guess Bobby, but I don't really like either of them.
Okay, that's fine.
Bobby.
And Ashley, your pick?
Bobby.
Yeah. Okay. In the spirit of your homeland of Texas, Dr. Pepper or RC Cola?
Dr. Pepper.
All right.
Dr. Pepper.
We're going to answer all the same.
There's a theme here.
We're going to answer all the same. We should just say them at the same time to see if we say it so we don't think we're cheating that we're.
Okay, then the next one we'll do at the same time. The Phantom Toll Booth or The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe on 3. 1, 2, 3.
The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
All right. Well, it sounds like you know each other.
Yeah,
I know. Do we have the same DNA? Maybe?
I don't know.
It's almost like that's the case.
It's almost like that.
What's the second dumbest and most annoying question that people ask about being twins? Not the first one, so people can't tell this because they're listening, but I'm 6'9". And so I get a lot of dumb comments about being tall, right? Like it's a constant part of my life. And I'm sure that you guys are sort of the same. You get a constant barrage of questions about being twins. What's the second most annoying one?
How do you know you're you?
Whoa, that's pretty conceptual though.
Yeah. Right though? Like I'm just going to the grocery store, like just trying to get a cup of tea, and they're like, how do you know you're you?
Ooh.
And I'm like, you know
your
what?
Parents mixed you up when you were babies.
Did your parents mix you up? Did you one day wake up like when you were younger and didn't realize and you started being Ashley? Leslie, how do you know you're the second born?
No, I mean, yeah, that's one of those, because on the bell curve of questions, that's both the dumb question and a profound question at the same time, depending on who's
it's never
asking.
an appropriate time. Like it's always, strangers obviously asking you.
Right. Yeah. It's never great. Okay. And I want to get to, before I forget, we had a question come in before this started from someone who really wants to know something, and she's writing from Australia. And her name is Lily, and she's 12. So, for Lily, who's listening from Australia, she wonders this. When you were creating the characters of Ava and Mia, she said it's Mira.
It's Mira.
Yeah. Okay, Mira, were you basing it towards yourselves, someone you know, or were you just basing them off what you think they would be like in your imagination? Thank you, Lily Corner, age 12, Australia.
It's a great question, Lily.
That was a great question.
A lot of it, we based it on ourselves. If we were put in that situation, in that high stakes environment of a one child policy America, we grew up kind of isolated in Texas as well. So we used a lot of that. And then we put a lot of our own relationship into Ava and Mira as well. Like I'm the eldest twin and I wrote all of Ava's chapters, and Leslie's the youngest twin and wrote all of Mira's chapters. So she really put any sort of emotion that she felt about being the
younger
second
child
born. Yes. She put all of that in. And then I put a lot of how I felt about wanting to protect her and keep her safe into Ava's chapter. So a lot of it has us in it. And that's kind of where we started out. And then of course there's a lot, we never had to go on the run, but and then we imagined ourselves doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but we did take the road trip.
Yes, we did.
Our characters go on the run from Texas to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to be in their minds. And so we went on their road trip, and we just, everywhere we went that we already knew we were going to go in the story, we would just jot down what it felt like to be in those environments.
Yeah. So we've actually been everywhere that they did.
Yeah.
It's a smart use of being a writer, because then you get to just be like, well, look, I have to go.
It was great.
It was amazing. I'm so glad that we did it.
This is all now a tax write-off.
Because we got to experience just being out and putting ourselves just with me and her in places that we normally wouldn't put ourselves in, just in the middle of nowhere wilderness. And we just have to, we get stalked by bobcats, and we're on Mount Evans, a 15,000 foot mountain during a lightning storm, and we have to figure out how to not die. And so we felt we were putting ourselves in situations that our characters are put in, and we did learn how to write more about fear and about how to survive. And so I guess we're not going to do that for every story though. We're put ourselves in the situations that the characters do, but it was really useful.
Do you guys, and I say this as more in the terms of like writing partners, do you get tired of each other's voices? By voices, I mean writing voices, not your actual physical voices. Does that happen? Are we going to unearth something psychological by me asking you that question that's going to result in a fight? But do you know what I mean? Like, is there any sense of like, you're doing the same thing that I'm doing, or I'm tired of hearing that from you, etc.?
No, we actually, we heavily outline together. So I always know what she's going to write, but what's cool about it is when we separate and write different pages, she always surprises me with the actual way she frames the scenes and the dialogue and the characters. So I am always intrigued and impressed by her writing most of the time. And I'm not sick of it at all.
Yeah, same as me. every day I'm always more, and it's a joy really to read her writing. And I mean, hearing notes is a different story. It's different, but I very much enjoy reading Ashley's work, and it's always fun to see how much she's growing with every project.
Mm-hmm.
And we all, and our writing styles are very obviously because we co-write together. I mean, no one would even be able to tell what pages I wrote versus what pages she wrote because we're so seamless together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if I was annoyed at her voice, I'd be annoyed at my voice, and then I would just hate writing.
Fair. What has been the timeline of all this? I know these 3 books have come out fairly quickly.
Yeah.
How long ago was the first? I mean, I know it was a screenplay, right? But how long ago what was your process as far as it took us this long to produce a rough draft and then second draft, that sort of thing?
It took us about, like 7 months to do our first draft?
And it was the Rule of One's the first book we'd ever written too. We'd never written a book before.
Mm-hmm.
So it took us a little longer. But it took us 3 years to get published?
I think it took us 2 years to get published.
2 years to get published.
After we wrote it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was from the time somebody said, this is cool that you've written a screenplay, but it would probably be more important to have the intellectual property first and then to base the movie on this. It was 2 years to actually go then sell it.
Yeah.
2 years to get it on. 2 years from when we finished it, but like 2.5 from when somebody said, write some IP.
Got it. So, I mean, obviously you were kind of making this process up as you went, right? Of like, there's going to be, 2 voices and, one of us is going to write one and the other was going to write the other. Did you settle into that quickly or did it take a while? How did you feel through those first few months? Because my guess would be that it would start off being a little raggedy, but I could be wrong.
I mean, we knew from the jump that we were going to do 2 voices and that I was going to write one character and she was going to write one character. And I feel like that's going to be the easiest book that we ever structure. Yeah. And that is so clear because it was just that the Rule of One, that story was just so in our souls, like that we were going to write that story. And we knew that how important and how cool and unique that would be for me to have a voice with the one twin and her to have a voice with the other. We knew that, but obviously it was different to get the voices down actually on the page and to take it to bulk up the world building from a screenplay because the screenplay.
But it was also easier too because we had the structure of a screenplay to go off of to adapt it as well, and that's something that we're never going to have.
Yeah, because we knew exactly what we were writing to. There was no no man's land for us. We knew exactly what the middle and act 2 was going to be. And
that's how we split up all the chapters. We would go through the scenes in the screenplay and then we divide them into chapters and then say, this is Ava, this is Mira.
Yeah, I think we actually structured out from Ava and Mira versus from the screenplay. We were drinking smoothies and we did it like in 30 minutes. We just said, we just knew which one was going to be Ava and Mira.
It was really innate in us.
I look back and I'm like, man, that was so easy.
Well, you bring up a good point about like having been in this space with writers of all sorts of backgrounds, it is often tempting to work in TV or movies because there's so much structure to it. Yeah. And I actually kind of wonder if there will come a time when a novel actually does have a structure. Like maybe we just haven't figured out that that's the way things should go because it's pretty like with especially TV pilots, right? Like if it's a 30-minute pilot, it needs to be 29 pages. And if it's, a 2-hour movie, it needs to be 120 pages. And there's no negotiating that. I actually sometimes wonder if we would all be better off if we knew that like all novels are 300 pages and that's it. And I think it would also make me happier as a reader, I think, because like it would force people to be more succinct, which would be helpful. And it is interesting how writing a novel is the Wild West. Like you could just go anywhere. And I think that can actually put people off a little bit because they're like, well, shit, I don't know. It could go anywhere. Whereas a TV pilot looks kind of like a TV pilot as long as you get it to 30 pages.
Yeah. And there's specific parameters that you stick to when you're writing a screenplay or television. And then there's 4 or 5 acts in TV, 3 acts in the screenplay. You just stick to it for that hero's journey and you just stick to it. But in a book, you could do anything. And that we feel like we can come up with TV pilots and films so much quicker because with a book, you just can do anything. You could start it in any way that sometimes that can be debilitating. You're like, I don't know if I should jump in or should I world build first and get to know the characters. But you can't do that with screenplay, so it's a lot easier to just stay with the action. But we actually do, we try to do that with our books. We actually stick to a 3-act structure of a screenplay in all of our books. And we just stick to the inciting incident, the turning point, the midpoint, turning point number 2, climax, resolution. And that for us gives us some sort of something to grip hold of. And like whenever I see the inciting incident and the turning points, I just see them like little islands. And then I just got to get myself to that other island. And if I can connect it to that turning point, okay, I have somewhere to go. I know what I'm doing. So I found that very helpful.
For anybody listening, there's a famous screenwriting book called Saves the Cat. And there's also a novel writing book called Saves the Cat Writes a Novel, which is actually remarkably helpful in this regard because the author breaks down some novels that you would love according to a lot of this like 3-act structure. And it can be fairly reassuring to know that like there is a way to make this work in people's minds. I would also say that like the Robert McKee book Story, which is actually for screenwriters, is really helpful for novel writing.
That's what we always recommend.
Yeah, it's remarkable how like sometimes when you're working on a chapter in fiction, especially, you're like, why doesn't this work? And you think back to like what he says about like, did something happen? Did somebody change? Either they were poor and they got rich, or they were happy and they got sad. And you'll realize like, oh, actually nothing really happened. A bunch of events occurred, but nothing happened in this chapter, and that's why it's boring. And I think there's value in reading about like other formats as we inform our own thing. Going back to those first days of working on the Rule of One, did you was it like, okay, we're going to meet and then we're going to go off and write on our own? Or was it completely unstructured and you just sort of had deadlines based on when you needed to turn stuff in? What was the actual process like?
Well, the way we wrote the first book was a lot different than all the other books, the second and third, because we didn't have a book deal yet. So the first book, we split everything up into chapters, and then we would separate and write those chapters. And then every day we read each other's work and we critique each other's work daily, which that's probably the most difficult part of living with your writing partner is you have to live with them after you get a whole red page back.
Right.
But so that's how we wrote the first book. And then we always do it the way we do it is like what Leslie was saying with the islands. We'll concentrate on writing up to the inciting incident. And then we edit as we write writers. So we'll do that. And then we'll go back and read all of that and edit. And then we'll do that for up to the turning point. So we always highly edit as we work. Cause I know some people are like cancers, and like they write the whole thing without rereading their work, and that terrifies us.
Well, I wonder if some of that might be because you are building off of another person's work. It seems like it might be harder to then go by the seat of your pants, because you just can't. You don't have that base of like, this is where we're headed.
And we also don't allow each other to, because we edit each other's work every day. We're like, no.
Stick to the outlines. We're big outliners that we'll go and I think we walked like 250 miles outlining our second book, and around that for the third book too. We just walk around the reservoirs here, like the Hollywood Reservoir and Silver Lake Reservoir.
Yeah.
And we just walk in circles like it's this wheel, and we can't leave it until we figure out and we break a beat or we understand a character arc or something. And we're very on the same page with each other as co-writers. And we find that when we talk out loud with each other, and if you don't have a writing partner, find someone to talk to. I don't know, yourself. But when you talk out loud and you pitch every scene together, or every conflict or every character arc, you see when you're saying it out loud that if it either works or it doesn't, because you can't explain yourself. And if someone asks you a question back, and if you can't argue that point on why it works, and if they say one thing and it breaks apart what you're saying, you already know it doesn't work. So you don't even have to worry about writing it. And so we're just big structure people that way. And then whenever we outline heavily, then we'll go on the page. So we don't even write until we outline like an entire chapter together, and then we'll write the chapter.
Does that ever take the fun out of the actual writing?
No, we
For us,
love
it
walking,
doesn't.
talking.
I love outlining is my favorite
Well, no,
part.
I don't mean the outlining does sound fun. I'm not saying that. I mean that if you've already outlined it, does that take any of the fun out of the physical
No,
It
act of
actually
it?
doesn't, because that's what we heavily outline, and I know every beat. That I mostly like. Mostly I'll know all the beats that she's saying, or we'll like say, okay, they're gonna have a fight, and it's gonna be in a wind farm, and she's gonna end up leading her. Like, we'll know that, and we know that it works. But then I read her scene, and I'm really surprised at what she does. And even though she stuck to what we were supposed to do, or if she finds some actual intention that that the sister actually does this, and it really works, and it's something I didn't think of, and I always usually surprised on what she does, and she keeps it fresh. Somehow we always just work that way. I don't know, our dynamic just works that way to where I don't get bored with it, and I don't get bored writing that way either, because I know I like knowing when I sit down, instead of looking at a blank page, I already know several lines of an outline for it, and then I can discover. So for me, it doesn't take away that discovery and that excitement you can feel on, oh man, what am I going to write today? I still feel that excitement because I don't know, I just do.
Yeah. Ashley?
Yeah, because for me, I like having a kernel of knowing something. It's like having the nut and then you grow the tree.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how it feels to me, and versus just having nothing.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know. Just a blank page for me, and not having talked about it or thought about it, I would just because I know a lot of people can be terrified at that cursor just blinking on that blank page.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I wouldn't.
Yeah, you're one of those people who would be.
Yeah. I mean, because I like how I like to sit with it and talk about it and have the world be talked about, and it's alive in its own way, and it doesn't just live on the page.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for me how I like to write.
Yeah. Do you guys give yourselves like hard deadlines as far as, look, you got to have that chapter back to me by X hour, day, whatever the thing is?
Yeah, we do. Well, because usually our deadlines are really harsh for our publisher.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's how they come out so fast.
Yeah, man. They're like, it was crazy. I think we had really tough deadlines, and all of our drafts were very hard deadlines. And so,
but we do that to ourselves now. Like we have page count goals daily. Mm-hmm. That's how we do it. We try to we don't try to do word counts. We're like more page counts, like, and then we edit each other's work every day, and that's how we do it. And we do structure out when we want chapters done. We'll have like a whole timeline on when we're needing things done, with a little bit of leeway.
Not that we ever really
hit the deadline.
You know, does anybody actually reach their own deadlines that they place for themselves? But it's like a form of torture that you do to yourself, but then you have to do it so you can get anywhere near it. And then we have lately been a lot kinder to ourselves, especially during the pandemic, on whether or not we reach our self deadlines, because as long as we're near it, we're happy with ourselves, because at least we're outputting work. We're having, like, are we having fun doing it? Are we producing? And are we keeping fresh with storytelling? Like, as long as we're doing that, we're happy. But we do always give ourselves very tough deadlines.
So let's talk critique, because that's one thing we've talked about in setting this up. I would imagine that the two of you have a ton of experience with just being critiqued by one another, and I wonder what have you learned? I would say that one thing I've learned as a writer is the importance of asking specifically what you need in critique. Yeah. That, like, if you just say to somebody, like, tell me what you think about this, that's not particularly helpful to them, because it kind of leaves them without any, guideposts. Is there one thing that you've learned above all else when it comes to asking for critique, or how you accept critique?
For me, the best way I like to accept critique is I like it when the critique asks questions, like what ifs, like, well, what if this happened? And then give suggestions, because it can make your mind really turn in a way that you didn't think about with the story. That's the most helpful for me, is asking thoughtful questions, what ifs. And that's what we try to do with each other. Like, you don't just critique it and say, I don't like this. You always say, like, what if this happened? Or would you say that too, Leslie?
Yeah, but also, like you were saying about being specific about what you're asking somebody for, or else they're just going to go off the deep end with something that, it should be set in the passed in China. And you're like, what? That is not helpful. Why did you do that? Like, no, you need to ask specific questions. Like, how is this character working for you? Did this come across that I was wanting to come across? Did you even understand what that person was doing in this section of the novel? Like, to be very specific about it. Otherwise, we find a lot of times too, you have to find a critique partner, or if you're asking, even if you're asking questions or if they're reading your work, you have to find someone who can be honest with you too. Because if you just ask people who are going to be, they just want to encourage you, or they just want to be nice because they do like it, but they're not going to say, that's not helpful. So if you're just, we found that that's not helpful, that it's just kind of a waste of time for everyone if you have that, versus having someone who can be, if you think that they can understand the specific story that you're telling, and then they can actually be helpful with specific things, and then critique can be helpful from the outside, from a beta reader or from your partner, from your sister.
Right. Somebody, I liked one time that someone said that it's a little bit like, they say you're like a sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? And that when you're asking for critique, you should find 5 people that are going to give you 5 different views, in that you know going in that this person's going to just say, this is great, everything you do is great, and you should feel really good about yourself, right? And then at the other end, you need somebody who's going to say, like, you're a piece of trash and you should stop writing. And then you need to find the 3 other sort of superhero powers in the middle. Like, this person's really good with emotional stuff, and this person's really good with, I don't know, the setting or whatever it is. But you kind of need to know going in the sort of
what kind of feedback they're going to give, or ask specific feedback from those different people.
Yeah,
but it is. Yeah, because it's actually hard though to know who to even get feedback from, in a way, because now I don't listen. Now that we work with an editor, and I don't know if I would even ask anyone's feedback. I just care about what my editor says, because I've learned that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if all those 5 people like it; it just matters if your editor likes it. But for our
that's happened before.
That's happened before, and you're
like,
wow,
why
you know
did
what?
you do
Brandon
this?
and everyone said this was amazing. Why am I not getting a book? But with the rule of 1, the first person we actually sent it to, a critique partner, or they weren't a critique partner, we just sent it to someone. We sent them, I think, like our first 50 pages, and they just trashed it. They just didn't like, not one thing about it did they like. And then
we sent it to somebody else, and they loved it.
Somebody else, and they loved it, and they encouraged us to keep going, because we were going to just stop writing it. And that's when we really learned that
you can't just listen to one person's opinion.
And you basically just have to go in when you're writing, because you have to have tough skin, and that we live in the world where we know that 50% of the people are going to like our book, love our book, and 50% are not going to like it. And I live in that, and I know I'm never going to just please everyone, and my work is never going to appeal to everyone. And if you already know that, you're getting that tough skin already, because you're like, well, fine, whatever. It's like, it doesn't have to appeal to everybody. So then that can be confusing with critique partners, because like, should you listen to that person? Because we didn't listen, and we didn't even revise it, and we got a book deal off of it.
Yeah, I talk a lot about how reading a book is an especially personal event. In that, if you sold 100,000 copies of a book, that would be fantastic. Like, you've hit a grand slam. But that percentage of the world is very small. There's 7 billion people on the planet, right? It's a little bit different from, the number of people who've seen Star Wars, right? Like, I can't imagine, but it's probably like 1 billion people have seen Star Wars. So a book's appeal is always going to be personal and specific. And so when trying to find a critique partner or group, it is a matter of keeping that in mind, of being realistic about, like, well, if everybody says this is awful, then I should probably rethink it. But that just one person saying it's bad is not necessarily accurate or even helpful in some ways.
Yeah, and then you need to get critique partners that understand the genre that you're writing.
Yeah, we made the mistake in asking a critique partner that doesn't read our genre and has never read our genre before. So always find critique partners that actually
at least half of them need to be.
at least half, because but really, because if people don't know the genre that you're writing in, it really is not going to be that helpful, because they wouldn't understand how
the expectations within each genre that a reader is looking for when they read fantasy or sci-fi. They don't know those markers that you need in there that the editors are looking for.
Right. What would you say that each of you has gotten better at within giving feedback in the 3-book path? Again, supposition, but I'm assuming you are better now at giving feedback than you were at the very beginning. You're like, nope, no growth. We've nailed it since the beginning.
No, because there's many arguments that happen. I feel like saying positives, but I've always been good at giving positives. I always give positives when I'm giving critiques about what could work, or well, this really works, but then this could be worked on. I feel like from our first book, from our third book, we definitely had a lot less arguments about our critiques on each other. And we've learned how to talk it out, and we've learned how to take critique better.
Yeah, that's the big one, is learning how to take it better.
How to take it, and how to not take it personally, and how to just have a conversation about what serves the story, and if it does serve the story better, and if it serves the characters better. And also having more of an open mind as a writer, and when you're getting a critique from someone, that to think out and give it a fair shot to someone's suggestions, or if they don't think something's working, like really taking the time to think that out, and not just being like, well, you're an idiot.
Because what we do it's always the best idea wins. It doesn't matter which one of us came up with anything, even if most of the time I don't touch her writing. Like if it's her chapter, I don't write her work, I just edit it. But when we write chapters together, I'll go in and rewrite things, and it's the best idea wins. That's what we've learned.
Because if you can argue your point, and you can say why that certain aspect that you're writing can serve the larger point of the story, or if that's going to carry on, if you can argue your point better, then you win. That's just how we are. Because we've gotten better at learning how to say, fine, okay, I think that's a better idea. And then we just keep writing. So I think we actually write faster now because we just get over it.
Have you come up with any tricks as far as ways to not be reactive?
No.
Well, at first, like when we read our edit letters from our editors, every time we get pissed. Like it kind of just with the initial read, it takes us a day. We just like talk it out, and we're like, they're so wrong. And then by the end of the day, you're like, they're so right. It's an amazing emotional journey that we go through with that.
But sometimes you don't think they're right until you're writing
angry at first, because you think about all the work that you had to do, or like why you did what you did. But once you get over it, like keep reading it and live with it, we've gotten a lot better at understanding how to take that and just start breaking it apart. We take it bit by bit. Like it might seem like a lot if you get like a whole after a novel, if somebody critiques you, but if you just take it bit by bit, you can handle editing and taking each critique and infusing it into the novel. But at first it can be difficult, if you see like a large letter from somebody, but it can be done. We're getting better at that, I have to say. We don't
learn, and understanding that it's a process too, that because the whole point of storytelling too is, it's not the whole point, but an aspect that I'm learning to understand and actually enjoy is getting feedback, and that it's actually just a part of storytelling. That's the whole point, is that stories can always get better, and there's always something to suss out, and there's always something that can be shined and polished or delved deeper into, and that's a positive thing, and that people are giving suggestions that because they want to see the story get better. And it actually, so I'm learning how I've gotten better as the 3 books have gone along to actually enjoy feedback, because I want to make the best story that I can.
Yeah, that's true. Like now we end up, after we start the process of implementing the edits, it's actually invigorating. And you see it as an energy charge, because you're getting somebody else's viewpoint on your story and infusing some of their ideas to make your story better. It's actually really exciting once you get over the initial anger.
Yeah, right. Once it's like a process. Once you get over it, then it's a great thing.
Yeah. It is really a matter of in psychological circles, they talk about the power of self-soothing, right? So like that ability to say, to go through the kind of the stages of grief in a way. You're like, really angry. And now I'm like, and now I'm dealing with it. And I think we all have to learn, we've all learned those techniques, right? Like that's the thing you learn as a kid is basically how do you like make yourself stop crying when you're 4 years old. And it's basically an extension of that, this ability to figure out like, okay, what do I need to do to get to a place where I can send a reasonable email back, whether that's like, do you guys, do you have any coping mechanisms? Cause I think that might be something that could be helpful to a writer. For me, a lot of times it's like, I got to go listen to some metal music for an hour and then I might be able to actually read this email with some sort of sanity.
For us, it's either talking it out with each other or going on a run.
Yeah, or I like to binge a television show. I like, sometimes I'll just binge a television show and not think about it, but subconsciously think about it.
Right.
And get away from it, so then I can approach it in a
different headspace.
I guess in a different headspace after I run, and then
also never open your critique email before you go to bed.
Oh my gosh,
that's the worst mistake.
For some reasons, a lot of times people like in the future,
get them at night.
If people are watching who like to, who are beta readers or critique people's work, do not send that email at night. Don't send it at 5 a.m. either, because then I'm going to wake up and see that it's there at 5 a.m. and then I can't go back to sleep. But for some reason, our editor, our like developmental editor for the series, really like to send those emails at midnight. It's like always at midnight, and I'm just like, well, there goes my night, and then I just can't sleep because I can't get over it. And it's
she'll just barge into my room, and she's like, "Did you read this paragraph of what they said?" Like, and there it goes.
Like, that character's not gonna die, and they're like, they have to die, and you're like, no.
So if you're listening, editors, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't
do
that.
Or if you receive it at an inconvenient time, don't open it.
Yes, I have learned that. Whenever I know that I'm going to get an email that's notes or feedback, or you got a book deal or you didn't, I learned how to put more boundaries on it that when I know that's going to happen, I don't let my email banner pop up on my phone, so I don't have to I don't know every second if I'm going to get an email, and I don't look at text messages. So if I know that when I go to sleep and I'm not going to look at my phone, I mute it. It's over there. I'm not going to touch it. So I don't get affected by it that way, which has been healthy, because then I can process things better during the day after a good night's sleep, and then I can binge watch a television show right after you read it.
Right. You need that full 12-hour day to like.
And then go on a rage run
or a walk,
I like the term rage run is pretty good.
Oh, rage run. People call me, they're like, "Are you on a rage run right now?" I'm like, "Oh
yeah." Let's get a couple of questions from our audience. Kayla wonders, on the topic of deadlines, could you give an example of what that looks like with a publisher? I.e., the first draft was due in X months, chapters in Y months, that kind of thing.
It was an overall deadline.
For our first book, I think, because we already had written the manuscript, and then we did our developmental edits. So there's always like developmental edits, and then there's line edits, and then there's copy edits, and then there's a polish, and then there's something else that happens after. But for I think we got to set our first deadlines, but you always do it because you want to impress them, the editors. You want to impress them with how quick you can write it. So my suggestion would be always give yourself like 2 months longer or a month longer than you think, because you will really thank yourself, and they won't care. It's because they care more if you're like, hey, I can't make the deadline. Like, just go ahead and give yourself that cushion, and they'll say fine. Right. I've learned that. But I think for every time, like what we had, like we also were writing. We had a development deal to do a TV show for Rule of One, so we were balancing writing a pilot while we were writing book 2, which is very difficult to do because everyone's deadlines were insane. So we always got like 6 or 7 months to write the book, but we always did it in 3 months at the very end. And then we always got a month to do, like maybe a month and a half to do a developmental edit, which is intense. Even if you don't even have a lot of notes, you always think it's like, oh, that was actually really positive that I don't have that much work to do. But it's, you know, it's a 400, 350 page book. It always ends up being longer than you think it's going to be.
Right.
And then there's like some ninja things in there that you don't realize how much that note actually affects everything. But
then we get like 2 weeks for a line edit.
We get 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks for a line edit.
And then we'll get like 2 weeks for a copy edit.
And then you have those arguments with the copy editor about, no, I want that comma in there.
Yeah.
We had this stupid argument with our copy editor for book one, where for some reason we had it in our heads that we wanted to say cactuses and not cacti. And every draft of our novel, we kept putting like a special note from the author. We prefer cactuses. And every time, no matter who was editing it at that time, down to the proofread, we were trying to put cactuses in there. Like, it is cacti. We did not win that argument. And we tried putting it in every draft, and they got it. And we would even,
that was a time waster.
We would, like, to argue our points, we like copy in links, like to the links.
Right.
Yeah,
you can say cactuses.
Technically, you could say cactuses as a choice.
I mean, that's that's the copy editor. If you're a copy editor out there in the world, kudos to you for being willing to do that job. But but they have staked out a claim, and they're like, this is how things are. And I do not want to fight about it. This is just.
And then we'll get it back. We'll get a message back, and they're like, according to the whatever the Chicago, the style that they. Exactly. And then we'll just get owned on it. And we're like, okay.
So we learned that that's a waste of time. Just concentrate.
Don't argue with that copy editor.
Deadlines. Just concentrate on certain things that the drafts require. So it's like even if you're not writing for a publish, like you're writing just for your own manuscript, like a work in progress with, to concentrate on drafts on different things, because you're not going to get everything. And that's good advice that I'm learning too. You're not going to get everything in your first draft. It's not going to all work. Your world building's not going to all be there. Your
character building.
Your pacing's not going to all be there. Your character work's not going to all be there. Your side characters, and really just you have really developed main characters, but your side characters need work. They don't even have names. You know, you have no idea what they look like or what kind of jobs they do. And I learned you're not going to have all of that in your first draft. Just know that. So then whenever you're going in for your second draft, whether it's by yourself or by an editor, it's your agent, you know that I'm going to concentrate on this. I'm going to concentrate on my pacing. I'm going to concentrate on my structure. I'm going to concentrate on that third act because I'm not very good at endings. You're like that. I've learned that, and that can help anxiety, so you can get something on the page, so you know you have something to work with instead of just being scared and not being, because man, I really need to work on my side characters. But really, it's just you'll do that in the second draft, and and that's something you can ask your critique partners too. It's like, hey, how much do you think I need to work on this? And that's something we've learned for every draft, which helps us keep on deadline.
Sophie wonders, this might be another dumb twin question, and she apologizes if that's the case. But
usually if that's the lead, then it really is.
But will you, or maybe you already are, ever going to write fiction books separately? If so, do you think the criticism process will change or stay the same?
We are not planning on ever writing separately.
But if it did, then it would change.
It would change, but I don't even think about it because we're never going to write separately.
Yeah, we're always going to write together.
We've known that since we were young, that everything we do, we're going to do together with our writing, whether it be TV, books, a book of poems.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. I have a brother in LA that I'm very close with, and we once tried to write a TV pilot together, which we recently looked back on, and it's actually not as bad as we thought it was. But we can't really write together. It's just too, I don't know. We're like close enough, but maybe not as. Is there some alchemy that you feel like you have that allows? Because I think there might be guidance for people if they're looking for a writing partner and they don't necessarily have a twin. What is it that you look for in a writing partner if you're not you?
I think we tried writing with a third person before, and it didn't work out very well.
But that's also because there's 3 cooks in a kitchen in that scenario,
But I'm saying what I've learned from that is I think that I would need a writing partner who brought something to the table that I didn't have.
Yeah.
So if I'm really strong on genre and they're really strong on relationships or character work. Like I would need somebody to bring something to the table that I didn't, because then you might butt heads if you're both good at the same thing and you're both just trying to do that. That's where I think that the problems would arise, because we're equal on most things that we write. So we don't really butt heads. And also I think it's just in our DNA and our synergy and just how we've lived our lives since we were young, that we just do it so easily because it's just our lifestyle and who we are.
Yeah, because we just did it growing up so much together that it wasn't, hey, how do we make this work? It always just works for us. But I can see writing with a new person how that I feel like you have to have the opposites attract, in my opinion, in order to you know, to even out with each other, or else you just be like, no, my world building's way better than yours. So we're gonna go.
And also, you'd have to have similar work ethic with like how how much time you want to spend on something, and like what you expectations for deadlines and getting critiques back and editing back. You'd have to have a pretty similar like drive.
Right.
Also the working style, like does someone like to spend a month thinking and free writing versus being very structured in weekly deadlines? It's like, well, that's not going to be a good partnership, because you're just going to argue about who has the better schedule. We have learned that.
I mean, for better or worse, it's a lot like starting a rock band. Like if it doesn't happen pretty, I don't want to say young, but developmentally early in a relationship, it seems like it would be tough. I've been making my way through the documentary about Oasis, which came out several years ago. But of course, the Gallagher brothers are famous for their feuds, but they also knew each other so well. And all of these guys had known each other when they were growing up. And there's something to that natural formation of friendships and relationships that then allows you to go be in a band together. And I don't think that's impossible if people are meeting later in life, but it would seem like it would be helpful to build the relationship first and then start the writing.
I think that I agree with you, because if you try to force something because you think that y'all are friends and you understand the same stories and you both like The Name of the Wind or Game of Thrones, and you're like, we can totally write this book together. I don't know, because I honestly have the same question on how do people co-write together that aren't that haven't grown up together, because especially for a novel, because it's such a personal perspective. A novel, it's such a personal perspective that I don't really know how you would fuse them together unless you're writing different characters.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having us.
I've learned a lot, and I'm hopeful that other people have as well. So again, for future listeners, the books are The Rule of One, The Rule of Many, and The Rule of All, and you should all read them. They are I liked the especially being set in Texas in the future, because it feels like you're right. You're both right that Texas would survive a dystopia, and it's also like set up well to become a dystopia, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
So enjoyed that, and I also think the idea of a world where people are limited to one child, and then you have twins pop out, and what do we do? Kudos to that as well. So guys, pick up these books. To Ashley and Leslie, thank you for being here. I appreciate it, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.